I think so
and
too.
threw her in a car and drove as far away as they could from this area.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. In this episode, we're going to retrace Candus's route to Ben Hill Road, the route that she took on June 15th. Thanks once again to Tector Gorch for going to the area and providing the maps and providing the photos. Once we've done that, we're also going to retrace Don's route, and I must say in this respect, I definitely learned something new, something I didn't already know. Just a reminder, today is the 21-day anniversary of 5-year-old Summer Wells' disappearance. The 5-year-old has been missing now for 21 days. She went missing on June 15th earlier this year. Before we get to today's episode, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Like, share, leave a comment, and let's get started. So I've really got to give Tector Gorch a lot of credit here, and I'm going to be reading a script that he provided to me. So this is really all his work, all his effort, all his words, right? Here we go. This is Tector Gorch quoting from an email that he sent. When I went to Warriors Path, I took the route I figured the family would take to Kingsport because I wanted to scout out the route along the way. So I went out Beach Creek Road, turned right on Lone Star Road, the continuation of Route 347, left on 93, that's John B. Dennis, and right on Moreland Drive to Walgreens. However, they reportedly took Grandma Candus to the hospital first and to pick up the boy near the hospital. That is northwest of Warriors Path, so they wouldn't have turned onto Moreland Drive. They would have continued on 93 a ways to take another route to get to the boys' house and the medical section of Kingsport. Holston Valley Medical Center and Kingsport Medical Center are in the same area, northwest from Walgreens Warrior Path area. The boy supposedly lives about 5 minutes from the hospital. A note about Kingsport. It is part of the Tri-Cities, along with Bristol and Johnson City. Bristol is home to 2 annual NASCAR races and is celebrated as the birthplace of country music, with a large museum and annual music festival centered around those routes. It's a border town. It sits on the border of Tennessee and Virginia. Johnson City is home to East Tennessee State University, while Kingsport is home to Eastman's Chemical Company, formerly Eastman Kodak. Science Hill High School in Johnson City and Dobbins Bennett High School in Kingsport are 2 of the larger high schools in the state and each annually compete in state sports titles in multiple sports. Tri-Cities Regional Airport in Blountville serves the area. Incidentally, Blountville is the closest weather station to Rogersville that I was able to find. Now back to Tector Gorch. So it seems the people in the area referred to Johnson City as JC. So JC's population is listed as 67,000. Unless that's just an abbreviation Tector's using. Anyway, Kingsport, 54,000, and Bristol is 44,000. 24,000 in Tennessee and 17,000 in Virginia. So just to be clear, Bristol straddles the state line. ETSU has an enrollment of around 15,000. There are communities and people living in and around all of the 3 cities. There are about 7 or 8 counties that are considered part of the Tri-Cities with a population of about 500,000. So while there are some extremely remote and rural areas, there's a sizable population as well. Did Candus, Summer and the boy wait for Grandma at the hospital, reportedly just 5 minutes from the boy's home, then go to Walgreens to get the prescription filled, then go to Warriors? That's the question Tector's posing here. Not clear. The boy's mother said they came to pick up the boy to go fishing around 10 to 10:30. So the plan to go to Warriors had seemingly already been hatched. At any rate, from the hospital and the boy's home area, they would have traveled southeast, likely down Fort Henry Drive, a main drag in Kingsport, and turned right into Walgreens at Moreland, or turned left to go to Warriors Path. By Candus's account, they went to Walgreens and were told the prescription would take a while, so they decided to go swimming. Walgreens is at Moreland and Fort Henry Drive. If you go straight across Fort Henry from Walgreens, Moreland becomes Hemlock Road on the east side of Fort Henry Drive. Hemlock takes you straight to Warriors Path, and it's only like 5 minutes from there. That part of her story rings true, going to Warriors from Walgreens. At Warriors Path, I went straight to the cove, as I deduced that to be the location beforehand by the map and by the local guy who had made the Twisted Tea video. After banging around there for a while, I drove over to Duck Island to check it out. As I mentioned before, it is where most of the people go, and it was fairly busy with activity. The cove just south of the horse stables is much more quiet. Note, while it is more quiet, it's not secret. Other people undoubtedly go there. There's a parking lot. It's just not a typically crowded site compared to Duck Island. So it is possible someone else left the Twisted Tea cans there. The area was fairly clean when I was there, by the way. That outbuilding right there is a block building and is not populated. It seems to be a utility building of some sort, maybe a pump house or something that serves the stables. After I left Warriors Path, I stopped at Walgreens. They do have that Prairie Farms brand of milk, which appears to be what is in the infamous video. This was before the video came out naming Price Less Foods as a stop, so I didn't know to check there to see if that milk was available there. It's really inconsequential as far as timing purposes, however, because it's still right along the route, so there would not have been a significant time difference in getting the milk at Walgreens or Price Less. One of the main purposes of my trip was to try to locate where that milk jug video was shot. I may have found the location. On my way to Kingsport earlier, I kept my eyes peeled for the yellow and black arrow sign seen out the window while Candus is driving. I deduced it was most likely pointing west, the direction they would be going on the way home. My plan was to check them out closer on the way back after my Warriors Path trip. There were multiple arrow signs along the route, but there weren't that many arrow signs like that which would be visible at that particular angle, parallel with the road. Most of them were perpendicular. This helped narrow it down. I did find one parallel pointing west, however. On the way back through, I stopped and shot a photo of the sign, plus what would have been the background out the back window of their truck before reaching the sign. It looked possible, but it was not conclusive. I mean, there is so little visible out Candus's back truck window, especially with the red item. It's very hard to determine what is what. It's hard to determine what the red thing is, much less what is beyond it. However, what I saw looked possible. I tend to think the red thing out the rear window was a passing truck, perhaps the red maroon truck the police are trying to locate, and not something in the bed of Grandma's truck that Candus was driving. Coincidentally, when I shot my photo of the background, there was a red truck that happened to be driving away. Is Summer sending us a clue, like the runaway horse? So then I got back in my vehicle and snapped a few cell photos, pointed out my window as I passed the arrow sign to see if anything else would match up with the milk jug video. When I got home to see what I had, lo and behold, I think I got lucky because one shot caught a photo of a pair of power poles that looked a lot like the frozen still of the same out of Candus's window right after passing the arrow sign. Disclaimer, it's not easy to duplicate shots. First of all, I was shooting from the driver's seat, not the passenger seat where Grandma was shooting. Aside from Grandma's 90-degree tilted camera, her angle was also lower than mine. In addition, I drove through there about 3 hours late in the day. If we are to believe Candus's video was shot at 3:09 p.m., not only that, but stills from video are going to be blurrier as opposed to regular photos, even ones taken with a cell phone camera. A still camera will freeze things more, especially if it's aimed out the window and doesn't have a person's profile in the foreground for the autofocus to ponder. That said, the succession of arrow sign and the twin power poles seem to line up within the same short distance. It's hard to match the background of the frozen arrow picture with mine due to the aforementioned factors. Camera angles and split seconds can make a huge difference in photo compositions. Also, as mentioned, I was traveling through around 6:30 p.m. as opposed to the alleged 3:09 p.m. time that milk jug video was shot. So shadows and illuminated areas are going to be significantly different due to the positioning of the sun 3 to 3.5 hours later. Camera lenses don't perceive objects and make identifying conclusions like our brains do. They capture blobs of pixels. Conclusion: I determined this milk jug video location to be on Lone Star Road, that's 347, where Murrell Road intersects. It's about 5 miles or 10 minutes from the Wells house. Let me say that again. It's about 5 miles or just 10 minutes from the Wells home. The boy's mother said they live about 45 minutes from Candus. So it looks like they were driving within 5 miles of Candus's house, driving away from Kingsport, already 35 minutes from the boy's house. Tector Gorch writes, is there a possibility that the 3:09 time and the 12:21 swimming time are just when the videos were shared or uploaded to a social media site? Or does that time mark exactly when it was shot? I don't know who or how that time was recorded and reported. Law enforcement likely knows. Well, to answer that, I think it's quite simple. One's got to look at the shadows and the lighting, and that is going to give you quite a good sense of that. Also, the metadata. So let's go back to what he says here. To be fair, my findings are not conclusive. It's just a theory. I do not know where the 15-year-old lives exactly, so I wasn't able to take that route and scout around for black and yellow arrow signs and twin power poles along that route. And he was taken home at some point. It's possible that the same combination of black and yellow, I actually think he has found them, by the way. He says, skipping just a little bit through his email, he says, after I gathered that information, I stopped and detoured up Ben Hill Road as I came back by, just to get an idea of what it was like on the ground. I didn't take any photos, but I can tell you that it is impossible to even see the Wells house from Ben Hill Road. I already knew you couldn't see it from the Beach Creek Road. Ben Hill Road travels uphill through a wooded area. Summer's driveway trails off into the woods to the right from Ben Hill Road going up the hill. You can't see any sign of a house, just a dirt road curling off into the woods. From Beach Creek Road looking up, you can't see the house either. It is surrounded by trees. The aerial views and photos we've all seen do not do justice to how steep a hill that house is situated on. So just to interrupt what he's saying here, I think what is quite clear is that the house is obscured from passers-by, so anyone doing something up there can do so with relative privacy in terms of line of sight. And they've also got the advantage of knowing when someone is approaching. Does that make sense? So going back to his email, he writes, the low-angle shot of the house we've all seen showing the house on the hill and the basement door has to have been shot in the lower portion of that loop part of their driveway that goes around the house, which is visible in the aerial shot. You cannot see that loop from Ben Hill Road or Beach Creek Road. All you can see from those locations are trees. Although there is an obvious incline in the photo we've all seen, the location of the house and that loop driveway is relatively level compared to the steep hill rising up to that point. Think of it like a big tree stump. The top of the stump is where the house and loop driveway are. It's like a 45-degree angle coming off a 70-degree angled trunk. But from Beach Creek Road, the hill looks practically straight up. It would be highly unlikely anyone would easily climb that hill, much less blindly climb up that hill to abduct a child. Makes no sense. Any vehicles going up their driveway would be heard, and the reported 20 dogs on the property would raise a ruckus of anyone approaching. That's according to the boy's mom, who said she had dog feeding duties when the family went out of town. So the abduction theory is highly unlikely. So I want to touch on two other things quickly. One is Tector Gorch. When I showed him the image about the wood, he said one of the factors against that being the boy in the back seat is the small amount of space between the box and the seat. That boy is fairly stocky and would probably take up much more room than I'm allowing in the rendering. In that arrangement, he would have had to be very slim to fit. Plus, he would be sitting in the seat that he's pulling forward, which would not be comfortable on his arm. There really isn't enough information to make that leap. the board is probably what is back there. So I think the other thing that I certainly didn't know that Tector Gorch has provided is that Don worked in, and I guess works in, Jonesboro. Did you guys know that? The other interesting thing is that one of the routes to get from Jonesboro to Rogersville, and of course the Ben Hill Road is fairly close to Rogersville, one would go through Kingsport. And so what we're seeing is a possible, it's possible that the routes that Candus may have taken and that Don may have taken returning from work could have overlapped. I think we also need to ask the question, which vehicle did Don use going to work? And, I think we know that the vehicle that Candus was using was the silver truck, her mother's silver truck. Now, one thing that they could possibly try to do is look at the odometer of the vehicle that Don was using and try and get a sense of, his daily commutes and try and link that to the last time that odometer was registered somewhere. It's very unlikely that it was, but who knows? Maybe he took it to a mechanic and it was the odometer reading was taken. And if it is fairly recently, one can get a sense of the daily trips that were taken. And from there, it's possible to possibly extrapolate where someone went off the typical route somewhere. It's speculation, but it's perhaps something worth looking into. The last thing I want to highlight is something sent to me by someone called Deborah. I put it in the previous video, but I forgot to mention it or highlight it. Tennessee state law mandates that a child be restrained in a booster seat through the ages of 8 and measuring less than 4'9". If your child is 8 years old or younger, then they must remain in a booster seat. So that obviously applies to Summer, who is just 5 years old. And so that video actually shows that Summer's mother is basically in trouble for not putting her child in a booster seat. And that in a sense can be seen as reckless. We've also spoken about the possible intoxication of Macbeth, and if that's true, then that is another thing that Candus could be confronted with. All right, I'm not going to take it further than that. I apologize for this video not being as well edited as some of the others, but I am wanting to get another video out tonight dealing with family dynamics, so I hope you'll forgive me for that. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.